You know, I ain't seen much of it so far. It's pretty much been the Brushwoods living room, and then Logan, and now this. Other than that, there was a Fasten ride from AU all the way out. Yeah, no, all the Bobo ride shares, man. Apparently,
but Uber could operate from the airport to Bryan's because that's not Austin, is it? No, I guess Bryan's technically in Austin.
They can't operate from the airport to Bryan's. They can operate from Bryan's into the city.
Got it. Okay.
Which I have gotten Ubers from Bryan's to the airport, but not from the airport to Bryan's.
But the airport's technically in the city. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, actually, now that I think about it. But Bryan's got an Austin address. He's not technically inside the city limits, I guess.
I think you can hail rides. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what
it's like in LA, sometimes you can use the LA for your mailing address, even though you're technically in LA County, not in LA City, stuff like that. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, they are literally like a stone's throw from Dripping Springs. So,
like Venice Beach, people live in Venice. They can put Venice, California on their mailing address, even though it's not actually a city. This postal system has weird.
Oh yeah, because like some people put like Brooklyn or Queens or something.
Yeah, right, same kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know. Fasten's all right. Although I would like to reward the underground. I think I need to do some delving into the black market, Craigslist communities.
Oh, really?
I want to reward the underground, because I think that this is just such an
embarrassment. I want a report from deep ride hailing.
I might actually have to do it. Maybe I'll interview some some off the record illegal ride hailers.
We're talking to a ride hailer. We'll call him Craig.
Yeah.
Craigslist.
I got a little into that scene because there is a fairly well-known podcast luminary. Let's for the sake of this argument say he has no agenda.
Okay, don't know who that would be.
He was giving basically it's led to a totally deregulated limo system.
Oh,
because you find people that you like and you literally just have this relationship with them where you say, hey, I'll agree to pay you Y if you just pick me up when I text you. So all of this, you need to have double complete background checks has led to a government regulated total, no holds barred grab ass black market of people driving everybody around.
Well, it's not that laws are bad, but if laws aren't popular with the populace always finds a way around those laws.
Life finds a way.
Yeah.
That's the most annoying line from that movie ever. That and I spared no expense.
What? Why is it annoying? Because it's amazing?
Life finds a way. Well, why didn't life find a way on Mars?
What? No. The point is that you can't restrict life. That if humanity, I mean, like for the point of that story is that humanity is trying to restrict.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things you like to tell kids before they go to bed so they can wake up. Oh, the world's gonna be awesome.
No, that's not the point of that monologue. The point of that monologue is you don't try to play God.
I guess.
Nailed it.
Don't try to. It's just what it says is you can come up with some pretty amazing creatures if you have enough. If you have enough money to pour into it and willing to spend on the ice cream as well.
Life finds a way, Roger.
Crashes through boundaries violently if necessary.
Plus, it's Jeff Goldblum, right?
Yeah, come on, man. Who wants
national treasure?
Person on earth except for somebody that Jeff Goldblum stole their girlfriend in high school that hates that monologue.
I don't hate it. It's just I don't know. It's just very trite. I find it very trite. All right. No, show your beard all you want. It won't.
I can buy. By the way, this argument is so much different when all I see is this Facebook Snapchat thing come up whenever you're talking, so I can't connect with your face. But like, I definitely think that it is misused. I will agree with you that people take it out of the original context and use it incorrectly as an empty platitude.
Let's see.
You know why they do that?
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. You're only going to inflame the argument, Tom.
There.
We're reaching an uneasy truce. There we go. No. You got to pick up the best gift. The best gift of all time, which is...
Wasn't that movie kind of the pivotal point where he started like really working out and like tried to get a chiseled physique?
No. Didn't he have kind of...
Or was that The Fly?
Fly. Yeah. Fly was definitely Jeff getting into shape.
Because right around the time with Life Aquatic, he was pretty buffed.
Well, that was like 10 years.
Yes, but I don't think he's stopped. Right?
I don't know. I think he always kind of had like Jeff Goldblum, especially for somebody who's kind of known as the nerd's nerd in like movies, has always kind of had like an athlete's build. Like even look at him in Death Wish. Like he's kind of got like that, like he's got like a swimmer's kind of look there, but like it's not like he's unathletic.
Let's see.
Jeff Goldblum, Death Wish. He's got a great quote there that I can't repeat because it's horrible.
That's the Jeff Goldblum I like to think of. The one from 10 Speed and Brown Shoe.
Jesus.
Propping up Ben Vereen to make him look tall.
Deep cut. Oh my God. How many apple boxes is Ben Vereen standing on?
Right. I get the idea. I put this back. I get the idea that Ben Vereen is actually holding Jeff Goldblum is actually holding Ben Vereen up with his left arm. He's like, just stand on my hand, Ben.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like some Cirque du Soleil, man feet.
Telling you, it has been for years, since the 90s. It has been my litmus test for when we have achieved the pinnacle of using the internet to distribute television is when you can get every episode of 10 Speed and Brown Show available on demand.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that the final the final test?
That is.
Like, I don't know.
Way, you can't, even in 2017.
Wow. It's like, I don't know. All this, I know that the IPO for Wrist Flicks has definitely taken off, but it doesn't have 10 Speed and Brown.
How's it the 10 Speed and Brown Shoe test, Mr. Merritt? Yeah, one of the problems is 10 Speed and Brown Shoe is one of those weird shows where one entity owns the pilot and a different entity owns the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So
to be fair, I have never heard of 10 Speed and Brown Shoe. I've never heard of 10 Speed and Brown Shoe until you literally mentioned it right now.
Oh, wow. No, I've been talking about it for decades.
Never heard about 10 Speed and Brown Shoe.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's my litmus test.
Yeah, because nobody knows it. And it apparently is not particularly well remembered.
Because life finds a way. All righty. Let's get this tech show on the road, shall we?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, March 9th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, Justin Robert Young alongside. It's Thursday. It's normal for Justin to be here, but you're in Austin, Texas, aren't you, Justin?
Joining the show live from the nascent opening days of South by Southwest, I am here. Yes, indeed. Joining you from Austin, Texas.
Now, usually I'm at South by Southwest. This year I'm not able to go, but I did put my wife on a plane to South by Southwest. So keep your eyes out for her. And by put her on a plane, I mean, I turned over and said, have a safe flight and stayed in bed.
Yeah, no, you didn't like drive her to LAX and like, are you sure you have your knapsack?
Yeah, I walk her up. Now, here she is. No, it didn't need that, in fact. But yeah, so it's a bunch of South by Southwest stuff going on. There will be a big Diamond Club meetup. We'll give you the details about that again later on, but it's Saturday evening for Exchange.
Saturday evening, 6 p.m. at the Brew Exchange, 706 6th Street. But again, we can get to that plug later in the show.
Yeah. We're going to break down WikiLeaks for you. There's a little bit of news about it today, but just in case you've been wondering, okay, I've been hearing bits and pieces. Do I need to worry? What's actually going on with that? We're going to talk about that.
Do I need to see Vault 1 through 6 to understand Vault
7? Yeah. I like the reboot that they got with J.J. Abrams coming in on Vault 7. Let's start off with some other top stories, though. Oh, Facebook. I feel like Facebook is now just trolling Snapchat as they roll out bits of Snapchat's features to Instagram one day, Facebook Messenger the next. Today, Facebook's Messenger Day feature is rolling out worldwide on Android and iOS. This is Snapchat Stories, but Messenger calls it Day instead of Stories. So you can add text, you can do doodles, you can pick overlays, you can do facial filters on your photos and videos in Messenger. And then instead of just sending it to people, you add it to your day. That's Facebook Story, where friends can view it for the next 24 hours after you post it.
In a way, this is kind of brilliant because for so many, chat has become its own social network. And I would not be shocked to see iOS add this in the coming, months or year, because a group chat for friends, and I think many people in this audience and certainly outside of it can understand this, is the way that you keep in contact with people near and far. And oftentimes you don't read everything. It is just this constant dialogue that is happening. So an easy way to summarize the best beats of it, I think, will only become more necessary. Sure, this is a Snapchat clone, but I don't think that this is necessarily as egregious as, let's say, Instagram just adding stories. I think,
and calling it stories, not even, yeah.
Exactly. I think that is them saying, okay, this is eating a little bit of our lunch. Let's make sure that we can take this and make it a way that people can interact on our platform in the same way that they killed Vine. But this idea of summarizing what has happened so you can just at a glance see an animated version of the last 24 hours of your group chat, I think is kind of inspired.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost, they call it table stakes a lot these days when there's a feature that you kind of have to have. And I feel like this sort of thing, Snapchat, to their credit, made this table stakes. They made this the kind of feature that every messenger wants to have. Be interested to see if WhatsApp would add something like this. WhatsApp, of course, also owned by Facebook. But I was listening to some kind of discussion that Emma Watson was doing on one of her junkets for Beauty and the Beast. And she mentioned when she was asked if she keeps in touch with people that from the Harry Potter movies, that she has a WhatsApp group that she created for all of them. And that just kind of struck me, as like, oh, that is the thing you do now when you want to keep in touch with people you're not around as much anymore.
Absolutely. If anything, I would be curious to see if Snapchat goes the other way and says, hey, people want to communicate in groups and they don't want to have to every single time add, this snap is going to go to XYZ people. And sure, you can prioritize it by popularity, but why not just have the, best friends? It is always goes to my best friends and have a way that you can communicate directly with larger groups of people.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Wednesday, Uber received a permit to test autonomous cars in California. Oh, hey, look, they paid
the $150, I guess. Yeah.
Uber also announced Wednesday that it will prohibit the use of its gray ball technology against regulators. Gray ball is meant to block people attempting to game the Uber system, but had been used to block official investigations into the company. Tom, Uber on the road to redemption?
I mean, they're trying as fast as they get accused of things to solve those things. Getting back there saying, okay, fine, we'll get a permit because we do have our headquarters in California. It'd be nice to test our autonomous cars there. Yes, we were wrong. It felt kind of snarky for them to use gray base against investigators, because what it felt like they were trying to say was, hey, we've got the system to stop people from gaming us, and investigators are gaming us. They don't really want to do a ride. They want to gotcha us. And so they're violating our terms of service. So we're going to gray ball them. And if you don't get it, like black ball is to block someone. Gray ball says, we're not going to stop you from using the service. We're going to make it look like there are cars there when there aren't, et cetera, et cetera. That was wrong of them. They know it. and they fixed it.
Question. If this gray ball story had not come amongst this other maelstrom of, rank the scandals however you want in terms of how important they are to you or how much you assume that they are important to the company. But if this had not been at the tail of all these scandals, would Uber have even addressed this gray ball thing?
I don't feel like they would have. The old Uber, the Uber that I grew up with, would have just laughed it off, right? I mean, like, haha, good luck, coppas, come and get us. But this is a kinder, gentler Uber now. They are reformed. They are trying to play ball suddenly because the straw that broke the camel's back came. I'm not even sure which straw it was, but somewhere in that flurry of straws, Uber's camel broke.
Yeah. And to paraphrase Kanye West and the best tweet that I've seen in the last year, for everybody that tried to gray ball me, you forgot about two things.
What in Uber's case, what would those two things be? I wonder.
Just go to the next story.
Reuters has seen communications about a WhatsApp project that would allow businesses to talk directly to WhatsApp users for a fee. Before you get your spam panties in a bunch, we're not talking about spamming people. A small number of companies from Y Combinator's incubator are taking part in the test, and WhatsApp is also surveying users about how they would want to use such a program. So this is charging businesses for special features that they would use to message their existing customers. You'd have to approve it, from what it sounds like. You wouldn't just get spam from somebody. You'd have to allow someone to message you, just like you have to right now for any WhatsApp. But here's some examples. Cowlar, I love this example. Cowlar, Cowlar, is a startup from Y Combinator participating in the test. Cowlar makes collars for dairy cows. Collar, get it? They want to use the system to send alerts from the cow collars directly to farmers using WhatsApp. So if the cowlar notices some problem with the cow, right now it does create logs, but they could use WhatsApp to send an alert. Anyway, big dairy markets, India, Brazil, Pakistan, are also big markets for WhatsApp. So this makes sense.
This is kind of brilliant.
I mean, there's some things here. Yeah. First of all,
I mean, and also there's something really, this is one of those like kind of tech does good kind of stories, because WhatsApp obviously is something that is very, very, very popular in some of the poorer areas of the world, up to and including India, Brazil, and Pakistan. Not to say that all India, Brazil, and Pakistan is poor, but there are poor elements of it. WhatsApp is a service that is tailored to and has been, positioned as a place that does not want to constantly sell you something. The idea that chat as a service continues to live and thrive is something that I find really, really interesting.
And this is WhatsApp's big play for monetization, right?
Yeah.
What they want is to figure out how to make money without charging you. If you don't remember, WhatsApp used to charge you 99 cents a year, and they almost never charged people. They would forgive it or do special promotions. You could entirely avoid that 99 cents a year. But they got rid of that a while ago, and they really haven't replaced it entirely yet. And Facebook, thankfully, has got enough deep pockets that they can play for time. But this, if it works, would be the way that they would make money.
Well, and the worry with WhatsApp after the Facebook acquisition is that just you are going to make money for Facebook the way that Facebook makes money on everything, which is using your data and analytics and your behavior to track you and sell you ads. And I think that WhatsApp understands, that they can't just load everything up with ads immediately. So they got to find other revenue streams. This is a smart way to do it. However, don't think that it will be able to stem the inevitable. WhatsApp will eventually become the Facebook ad platform that was fated for it.
And at the first hint of unsolicited messages, I will change my tune. But right now, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that everything they're talking about says they don't want to give you unsolicited. And that's the difference between spam and just a commercial message from someone you do business with.
Sweet summer child. Scientists at IBM have successfully stored 1 bit of data on a single atom of the element holmium. holmium. An average hard drive uses around 100,000 atoms to store a single bit. The researchers passed an electrical current through a holmium atom to flip its north and south poles. The poles stay flipped and can be measured to read data.
Now, this is one of those stories where we are far from practical application, but the idea that you could increase storage by 100,000 times because you can use atoms to store the bits is incredibly appealing, right? We've kind of reached this processor speed debate about how fast can we really increase processor speed? How fast can we multiply the number of transistors? So the exciting area is storage, because if, and bandwidth, but if we want to be tossing around all these 4K and someday 8K videos, we're going to need much bigger hard drives. And this points a way, granted, maybe 10 years down the road, but a way that can be achieved.
That there is a possible path to something that is exponentially greater than the reality that we know now.
When we hit the atom limit, though, we're like, oh man, I wish I could store more than one bit on an atom. Can I store a bit on an electron? Can I do some fermion storage? Man,
I mean, why not, right?
Crazy stuff, right? Yeah.
We're in a bold, beautiful world.
All right. Google made several announcements at its Cloud Next conference in San Francisco. I'll run through all four of them, and then we can pick which ones we find most significant. They had already announced this 4K touchscreen, 55-inch 4K touchscreen, but it's going to sell for $5,000 sometime this May. That's the one called Jamboard, because you jam your ideas up on the board.
Jam.
Third-party add-ons are coming to Gmail. Now you might say, well, I've already got third-party items, but you have them as browser extensions. These would be in Gmail. So you'd be able to get them across all your apps, no matter what browser you're using to look at Gmail. It is going to be focused on enterprise customers, though, and it will not be an open marketplace. So think invoicing more than Boomerang, unfortunately, maybe. Enterprise-focused updates to Google Drive, like team drives with better management of sharing. So like if someone quits your team, their files don't go with them. You can actually centralize them. A Vault for administrators, migration services from AppBridge, which Google has acquired, and early adopters will get Drive File Stream. Early adopters is actually a Google program, not just early adopters who choose to do it. Drive File Stream tries to choose the files it knows you'll need to be synced to your drive for offline access. So if you only have 10 gigabytes available for Google Drive, it'll fill that with the files it thinks you're most going to need and keep the rest in the cloud. And Google Hangouts Chat is differentiating itself from Google's Allo messaging app by becoming a business-oriented Slack competitor. Basically, this adds a load of new features to group chats in Hangouts, including threaded messaging, integration with Google Docs and Sheets, search, rooms, app scripts for bots and bot integration. Hear that, Growbot? Integration with Hangouts. Google Meet video conferencing integration. It comes first to businesses in Google's early adopter program again, and it's unclear who's going to get it after that, whether it's just going to be for Google Apps Suite or whether it'll come to all of us.
Where do you want to start with this one, Tom? What do you find the most interesting?
I feel like the Slack competitor is the biggest one here, because even if it doesn't come to all of us, it's free. It's something that's just available. They're not charging for it at this point anyway. That's a big competition for Slack, which makes you not only download something, whereas pretty much everybody's already in Gmail in some way or another, right? And they've got Hangouts. But also, if you really need to use it in your business, you're going to have to pay for it. There's a free tier, of course, but Google can compete that way and say, oh, well, if you're already paying for Google Suite, you're in. You don't have to pay extra for this. They could also make it available to everybody for free and just all of us be using it already, right? And I think that's pretty genius, because it also solves the other problem, because we were all out here going, well, wait a minute, what's the difference between sending a message to someone on Hangout Messenger, which is different from Hangout Video, and it makes my head hurt, and now there's Allo. Allo is your SMS replacement, so to speak. It's your messenger app, and Hangouts is your group chat. It's your Slack.
I still don't think that that's clear. And I almost wonder for Google Hangouts whether or not that has just always been this wayward product that has been pushed hither and non. Either it is basically the closest that they've gotten to an effective YouTube live platform? Or is it business chat? Or is it just a way that you can do video messaging like a Skype replacement? It's always been so good that it can play in all these different playgrounds. And yet it has never been good enough that apparently Google just wants to say, no, this isn't something that we're going to plug in other places. This is Google Hangouts. Respect it, and it will find its own audience. It's always needed to plug into, be it Google Plus or YouTube, or now this business vertical as it tries to take on Slack. I almost wonder whether or not there is always going to be this question mark. And beyond that, why will businesses want to do the very, very painful migration of people who are not tech savvy to a Google enterprise platform when Google has repeatedly shown that they will pull the plug on projects that they do not feel are catching traction in a moment's notice? Like that to me is the biggest death knell for this.
I think what Google would say is, well, in the enterprise, we don't do that. Yes, we have a bad reputation because we had to spend years cleaning up years of experiments in the public area. But when you pay us as an enterprise company, we don't yank those features away. And we have a service level agreement. And we have support and all these things. And we are right in there with Microsoft as an enterprise provider. By the way, Microsoft has their own Slack competitor, right? So this is the thing you do. I think that means, I don't know that changes what you're saying, though. I think there still is a lot of perception that maybe Google pulls stuff. But I also think this is meant to appeal to the people already paying for Google Suite or thinking of paying for Google Suite. And that's a different proposition than just trying to capture the general imagination out there.
But there's no reason why they can't compete for Slack, right? I feel like if there was a Google-backed company or Hangouts spun out and now it was a Alphabet company and it was now no longer, it was, of course, would always work with Google and the backbone was going to be fed by Google, but now it was its own company that was going to provide video conferencing, and the way that they would make money is this business, the entrepreneurial vertical that Slack has done so well because they've tapped into the idea that, hey, you don't have to be a gigantic business to get involved with these business solutions. We are in a softer market where any three people can use and be bettered by these solutions. And Google Hangouts seems like it could be perfectly focused for that. And yet Google has never really been able to strike that perfect frequency to, I think, best take advantage of its technology.
Yeah, there's a couple of perception problems that they're running into. One of them, we're talking about, which is thinking of Google as a legit enterprise provider, which a lot of people do, but there's still a perception that they're not by a lot of folks. But the other is this Hangout confusion. I wonder how much of what you're saying isn't caused by using Hangouts. If we just change the names to, Google Slack, and obviously they can't call it that, but
can't call it that.
But Google has a different name for its Slack competitor, and it has a different name for its video conferencing, and Allo is its messaging, and Messenger on Android is its text messaging. Do we say, oh, well, this all just makes sense? Is it the fact that Hangouts is still a word floating out there? It shouldn't be Hangouts on Air. It should be YouTube on Air. It shouldn't be Hangouts. It should be Google Group Chat. It shouldn't be Hangouts. It should be just Google Meet.
No, but Hangouts has survived for a reason. When Hangouts was a feature in Google Plus, you looked at Google Plus and you said, this might not live, but Hangouts is cool. When Hangouts was the part of YouTube Live, nobody thinks that YouTube has a great way of doing live, but everybody likes the fact that there is an automatic camera switching element to Hangouts. Hangouts is the product, and I understand that they're always trying to find it, but let me posit this theory, Tom. Hangouts finds a way.
Let it go. Let it go. That's what I say. To get all the tech headlines every day in less than 10 minutes, in fact, around 5 minutes, you can subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. Get it as a podcast, or if you're like, I don't want another podcast, you can get it on your Amazon Echo and just say, hey, add the Daily Tech Headlines skill, and it'll be part of your flash briefing. Or you can get it on the Anchor.fm app, where you can actually skip through the things, and we take calls from people on there. Anchor.fm. They're all different ways to get the headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. And that's a look at our top stories. All right. The news today about WikiLeaks is that the actual code of the CIA hacking tools has been offered to tech companies. If you recall, the TARs and the zips and the files were not part of Vault 7 that was leaked on Tuesday. And a lot of stuff was redacted from these documents. But Julian Assange said Thursday that WikiLeaks would provide additional technical details exclusively to tech companies affected by the exploits in order for them to develop fixes. And to check in on where people are, Wednesday evening, Google said it believes it has already protected Android and Chrome from many of the exploits. That's not all of the exploits. Apple previously made a similar statement. Many, not all. Linux Foundation just sort of made a statement that open source rapidly issues patches and continuously is made more secure. Kind of made me feel like Linux Foundation doesn't know if all of these are patched or not, but feels like there's a good chance they are because they have such a wide range of community. Microsoft and Samsung, last thing they said is they're looking into the documents, so we don't know there. But if you're a little confused by all of this, I want to break it down for the people, Justin.
Break it down.
We want to tell them what happened. So Tuesday, 8,761 documents, no code base, no IP address. It's called Vault 7. Appears to have been taken in February or March of 2016. In fact, Bruce Schneier pegs it as a couple of years old because of references to Komodo. WikiLeaks says the documents range from 2013 to 2016, but most of the documents are old. Bruce Schneier and cybersecurity expert James Lewis think it was probably given to WikiLeaks by an outsider. And Reuters says two government officials, off the record, anonymous, told them, well, not off the record, I guess, on the record, but anonymous, told them that the CIA has been aware of this leak since the end of last year and is investigating contractors. The New York Times has a source that says a server outside the CIA that was managed by a contractor is the likely source of the leak. So in other words, the CIA didn't get hacked. Somehow, it sounds like these documents were stored somewhere less secure and then were given by someone who shouldn't have given them to WikiLeaks. What's in there are exploits for smartphones, TVs, computers, routers, etc. Some descriptions of a program called Umbrage that tried to maintain techniques to misdirect attribution. So use a consistent suite of malware that all appeared to come from somewhere else besides the United States. And it shows that the CIA hoards vulnerabilities and uses them for offensive purposes, despite CIA assurances that it was participating in the vulnerabilities equities process to work with companies to responsibly disclose vulnerabilities that the CIA didn't need. If these are years old, a lot of these probably weren't needed anymore. In fact, Wired had an interview with Michael Daniel, who was at the time special advisor to the president on cybersecurity, saying the vast majority of exploits are disclosed. So, Justin, does this all bother you? Because it doesn't look like anything illegal was going on based on these leaks. It seems like the leaks aren't really relevant. They're not current tools. They're older tools. And all it shows is that the CIA, big surprise, may not have been handing over exploits to tech companies to fix as fast as they claimed.
All right. Number one, there are two also big political things that you guys might have heard or listeners to the show might have heard. One of the tools that were used, one of the revelations in the Vault 7 dumps were that the CIA often stores and uses exploits that have been used by other nations. So as a way to maybe obfuscate what the work that they are doing to pawn it off to either third party or foreign national governments.
That's the umbrage. That's the umbrage technique. Yeah. And most security professionals look at it and say, yeah, that's probably a good cover to keep people from figuring out it's the CIA. But no security researcher would look at that technique and attribute it.
And attribute it to other places. Right. But that is something that has been attributed to it. And apparently their hack to get into Samsung smart TVs is called the Weeping Angels, which I'm just going to go ahead and exclusively report is indeed a Doctor Who reference. Beyond that, is this important? Should you be worried? The fact that the CIA is doing this, any logical thought process should probably lead you to the fact that this is something that they are working on, and we hope that they are working on because they are, you know, a element of our government that should be using the full extent of a cybersecurity to get their man. However, let me ask you this, Tom. Should there be more transparency in their tools? Should they be more forthcoming, especially considering it seems like if this is 3-year-old stuff that's making its way out into the public sphere, should the CIA basically own these stories and say that, yeah, these are exploits that we use and tech companies should patch them up, because if we know them, there's a good likelihood that other people know them, or that's where we got them in the first place.
I mean, yeah, it boils down to the classic case of where is the line between safeguarding the public's property, in this case, our devices, and safeguarding the public's safety from attack, which is going after the bad guys. And if you're in law enforcement, if you're in the CIA, you always want that line to be as close to letting you do whatever you need to get a bad guy as possible. And you're going to push that line, and you should. That's your job. If you're a device maker, you're going to always be for having that line be as close to fixing everything as soon as it's known, because you want to protect your customers, and you should push for that. That's your job. So it's up to the rest of us to come up with a line that's reasonable, that says, well, I know you're not going to get as much power as you want, but guess what? Too much power is a bad thing. And there's a law of diminishing returns where you're not really going to catch a bad guy faster because of this. So I know we can't know that, but let's move the line over here. And guess what, device makers? Yes, you want to fix everything as soon as possible, but law enforcement can get some benefit about being able to use these things. So let's move your line over. We could go all day talking about where that line is going to be. There's a process for that called the vulnerabilities equities process. And if you look into that, it details a very robust internal discussion that is supposed to happen in the NSA, in the CIA, in the FBI about whether anyone needs this vulnerability still. The idea, the way it's described, is you have to prove to me that you still need this to apply to a case. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to the device maker to fix.
Yeah.
The problem with it is, and you nailed it, there is no transparency. We don't know, we can't see those conversations. We don't know that they're happening. And so I don't know if there needs to be some partnership closer with the companies that make the devices to say, hey, we're going to, bring you in certain number of people, limited under NDA, to participate in this so that you can see it and give some oversight, because you can't just make all of these totally transparent, or the people you're trying to use these against will know you have them and defend against them.
I mean, and this is a element of broken trust that was laid bare during the Snowden leaks and Project Prism, of the device makers and service offers, including all the ones that we use every single day, that could not even acknowledge that they were part of these programs because on a penalty of perjury, because this is national security, they can't have an honest dialogue with their consumers, many of whom pay, some of whom use a free service. And that's where I think we are rapidly getting to a point where now, for our national security apparatuses, more so in 2017 than even when Snowden first leaked all that information, it's now probably beneficial for them to have more of an open communication, not only between these companies, but also with the public, and freeing up these companies that if you don't want the CIA to say, yeah, these are vulnerabilities that we're patching up, at least let the companies say, these are vulnerabilities that we are patching up. Because if nobody is saying it, and now this is out here in the public, I don't know who that serves. Like, yeah. I honestly don't think that I don't think it serves law enforcement. I don't think it serves the companies and their trust with consumers. And these are only going to get more complex the more we use all these services.
ATL John Boy nails it in the chat room. He says, define bad guy. That's the issue, right? If we all trusted, like you said, Justin, that bad guy only meant people we all think are bad and it was never going to be misused, then we wouldn't have a problem. We'd say, yeah, take these exploits, run with them, nail those folks, then hand them over to be fixed. It's all about who's the bad guy. Are you targeting the right people? And did you actually hand it over? Because some of these exploits in here are old. Now, also, many of them seem to have been fixed, at least according to Apple and Google, which implies that these are things that let's not forget the CIA acquired these in most cases. They didn't develop them themselves. So it's not impossible for Apple and Google to find them out themselves as well.
This is something that has been a part of the dialogue about stories like this since the first Chelsea Manning WikiLeaks kerfuffle so many years ago.
Yeah.
The problem in these situations is over classification as not releasable. When everything is a state secret, then nothing, or fewer than should be, is a state secret. If a lot of this stuff is 3 years old, then it needs to be out in the public. You need to disclose it. It makes the security and the law enforcement tools that are needed and necessary safer if they are not possibly also a part of some server that a contractor has access to and can dump off to the Ecuadorian embassy in London so Julian Assange can parrot it off to the world with his Mange coffee cup.
If there was trust, you could imagine a world where a bug bounty program would take an exploit, hand it off to an intelligence agency, say, here you go, use this, we're going to fix it by this date.
Yeah.
But that's never going to happen because that trust is so far broken,
but
for many reasons.
I mean, but there has to be a better way. And in instances with government and law enforcement, trust is never fully broken. It can always be repaired because it's always going to be a part of our life. There just needs to be a better good faith effort. And until there is, they're just going to have situations like this where they're backpedaling and saying, no, but this is old, and no, but a lot of this is already fixed. Guess what? It's a scandal on your hands that now leads the bad guys, the dreaded bad guys, closer to what kind of tools you were using before. And now, now things are worse off than they would be otherwise.
My opinion, my personal opinion on this is I want my properly acting law enforcement agencies to go after the folks who are bad however they can. And that includes taking advantage of exploits. But I also want the device makers who make the devices I use to know about and fix things as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like those are in contradiction, but they don't have to be if you actually get people working together. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Got a few emails to get at before we're out of here. First one comes from Joe, who says, first, love your show. Second, I just wanted to weigh in on the whole ARM super efficiency bit. He says, as a former hardware geek turned family man, just no time to stay on top of the latest tech like I used to, hence my love for your show. I couldn't figure out how to accurately write to you that ARM isn't necessarily more efficient, just different in how it executes instructions. So for that, I went to the web and read this article that compares the two and basically ends with saying this. Based on this study, we consider ARM, MIPS, and x86 processors simply as engineering design points optimized for different levels of performance. There's nothing fundamentally more energy efficient in one ISA class versus another. In the concluding paragraph of the report, the authors write, it appears that decades of hardware and compiler research has enabled efficient handling of both RISC and CISC ISAs, and both are equally positioned for the coming years of energy-constrained innovation. He also read an article on Tom's Hardware that compared one of the more efficient x86 chips, Atom, to an ARM chip in a Chromebook. And all of this is a way of Joe pointing out that we may have made it sound like ARM was the only way to get an efficient chip in a server when we were talking about Microsoft testing ARM chips that run its Windows server. And we shouldn't have led you to that if that's what you thought. We sort of forget that x86 makes that Intel makes Atom processors because they just aren't used as often. But we did mention that Intel is part of that. And Joe very rightly points out, like, hey, ARM isn't the only energy efficient processor out there. It may be more dominant right now at that particular size.
But that's not the only game in town.
But it ain't the only game in town. Thank you, Joe, for that. Appreciate it.
Frederick wrote in to let us know that the persistent menus we talked about on Saturday have been available in Facebook Messenger for a while. He writes, what changed is the placement. It used to be accessed via a hamburger menu in the corner of the chat screen. Now it appears already expanded under the text entry prompt and can in fact entirely replace any text entry, though why a bot would want to do that is beyond me. It also supports up to 3 levels of submenus. Hopefully that makes more sense now. Love the show, and your thoughtful and well-informed views make you the Michael Kranze of tech news. That is Frederick, the eBay engineer from sunny San Jose. Thank you for the clarification, Frederick.
And thank you for making me look up Michael Krasny, the American broadcaster who is the host and senior editor of KQED's award-winning forum. That is a lovely comparison. Thank you, Frederick. I'm humbled by that. And yeah, and I did not realize that those menus were available. The big change is, of course, that they automatically show up. Finally, Scott in Cary, North Carolina says, I've listened to the recent discussion about mesh routers with interest and wanted to provide folks with my experience. My parents have a house in South Carolina that was built about 100 years ago. It's single story. Walls include mostly plaster over masonry, about 12 inches thick. They have long had issues with Wi-Fi, and he talks about how they used a range extender in the past. So in order to get any connectivity to his mother's study at the other end of the house, because the modem is coming in at one end of the house, they had to put that range extender in. Last year, I bought a 3-pack of Eero routers for them and installed them. It soon became clear to me that in order for the routers to set up their mesh network, I would have to put a unit in almost every room in the house, which was not feasible. Ended up using power line networking to connect the routers. And now my parents are happy and I can sit on their back porch with my laptop and read my email when I visit them. I've been listening to the podcast for about a year and started the Patreon thing a couple months ago. Thanks for the great info. Well, thank you, Scott. This goes to show that, yes, there are limits with these mesh routers, Eero and others, where they have to be in line of sight of each other. Now, you can have certain amount of walls between them. I have one downstairs and it goes through the floor up to the next one above it, but I had to move that one pretty close to make that happen. So if you got 12-inch thick walls, that's going to cause a problem, and maybe power line networking is your fix, like it was for Scott.
That's just it. You know, you might have to wind up doing the simplest possible solution, which is just run a wire.
Power line networking doesn't need a wire. You just plug it in and it uses your power lines for it. Which is nice. But the point is, there's not one situation that works for everybody, right? It all depends on what you got going on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Justin Robert Young, of course, for joining us. Let folks know what's going on, including reminding them about the meetup on Saturday night.
Absolutely. There will be a live Night Attack podcast this Saturday at the Brew Exchange in Austin, Texas. That is going to be at 6 p.m. at 706 6th Street. A lot of sixes involved in this show. Again, me and Brian Brushwood providing our comedy stylings as well as musical acts, including the Possum Posse and Dual Core. It is going to be an absolute blast. This is the first time we've ever done anything in the late afternoon, evening that involved a live show. We're going to have just a great time. So I would love to see any DTNS folks that are local to the Austin area. I know if you're local to Austin, you don't have to even go to South by, right? Just come on in, park on the outskirts, get a Fasten or a Ride Austin over there to the Brew Exchange. Have a great time. We are going to absolutely be enjoying everybody's company.
Hey, thanks to folks who give a little value back for the value they get from the show, like Stan and Richard and Andy Gary at patreon.com/DTNS. That is the only way we make the show happen. So big thanks to everybody who supports the show. I just posted, if you're at the $5 a month, that's 25 cents a show. If you're at the $5 a month level, you get an exclusive post that will get emailed to you as well with a recap of the news, but also an exclusive column. My column this week is 2 parts. One is a breakdown of WikiLeaks in even more detail than we went today, but also just this idea that the internet isn't new anymore. And those of us who've been around on it since the 90s, the way things worked back then don't work anymore. And I think that explains some of the issues that are going on online. But if you want more about that, patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Allison Sheridan, who's going to share her experience as 30 years as a female engineer. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Time German Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Boom! Voice made it all the way to the end of the show.
Yeah, dude, you were on borrowed time. Jesus.
It started to fade there for a second.
It's
Yeah.
a good thing you're not coming to South by. I don't think that you'd be able to survive the whiskey and bar dwelling that comes along with that process.
No, you got to train for that.
Yeah. No, your voice. What has wrecked your voice?
Oh, it's just a cold.
Cold.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Are you hiding something, Tom? I
Like
can't
what?
hear me. Nothing? Can you hear me?
No,
Oh, no.
we can hear you.
Oh, no. No. That's how rumors get started.
About Tom's cold? Wait, goddamn,
Why
Tom.
are you starting a room?
Yeah, what's wrong, Tom? What's wrong? Jesus.
Yeah. What are you hiding?
Why? What have you heard?
I'm sorry.
No, I just got a cold.
All right.
How much is everything in your room? Is anything in your room rather natural light, or is it all just a lamp?
Oh, no, it's all natural light windows.
It's all
I
natural
don't have
light.
a lamp on.
There is
It's
one,
the opposite.
like one element. As soon as you went to Southern California, your background just became so much better lit.
It's because there's a window behind me.
SoCal sun.
And on the side and the front. It's the SoCal sun. Moving those 300 miles totally shifts where the sun enters a building.
You don't have that big marine layer hanging over you all the time like you did in your old neighborhood.
Yeah, no Marines. Unlike here. Well, no, down in San Diego, you have Camp Pendleton.
You have more Marines down there. Yeah. Although you probably you're closer to Space Marines being in Los Angeles.
Sure.
Space Cadets, definitely.
Yeah.
Top of the title heap is Uber's Camo Broke.
Uber's Camo broke. Well, no, but this is them putting their cable back together again, right? Like this is
that's true.
So wait, is it gonna look like a horse this time?
Camel.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Camel is a horse built by committee. All right. Followed up with Uber on the Road to Redemption. Followed up by What's Moo. IBM finds data in the new Holmium.
Just fun to say.
Comic books are coming. Google trying to pick up the slack. Uber suffering from gray ball. That sounds like a thing you need to see a specialist for.
I believe that's the intention, yeah.
WhatsApp popular with Europe and cows. Homeopathic state. Oh, I get it, like homeopathic.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I kind of like Google picks up the slack is although I who knows how many other times you're gonna be able to replace the Google with that title, considering how many
Microsoft picks up the slack.
Exactly.
Facebook picks up the slack. Yeah.
Google is a yanking doodle brandy. CIA has some bad umbrage.
Bad umbrage.
Get it?
That's good.
That one's pretty Google privacy.
Umbrage, Harry Potter reference. Like if we almost definitely had a Doctor Who reference, is it out of the realm of possibility that umbrage is a Harry Potter reference?
It's spelled like taking umbrage, right?
Not Dolores. I didn't know that Dolores.
Not like a Dolores Umbridge. But I like it. I like that it fits. And of course, I could see somebody kind of tweaking it like that as a private joke.
But there's nothing
maybe
else.
I'm wrong. Maybe it's not spelled umbrage.
No. Yeah, no. Umbrage is BRIDG for the
and the CIA one is AGE. Okay, good.
So what do you think? Google second. I like leaking to the digital ocean. I do like the umbrage one. That's me.
Bad. What? Which one? Bad umbrage?
Yeah.
Like bad hombres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CIA has some bad umbrage. That's a bridge too. It's a
too far.
It's a That's a long way from super clear. I kind of feel like Google trying to pick up the slack. I mean, sure, listen, like everyone's going to rip off Slack, but you might as well. At some point, there was a show that should have been titled A Show Without Merit, right? Like,
right. The very first time that we ever used that on Buzz Out Loud.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Hey, can I ask you guys something? It's just a little totally off topic. Calling something the tits, super old or super hip or both?
I think it's super
Maybe
old.
both.
It sounds like something from like the early 2000s.
Oh, because I would have went even older. I would have thought that it sounded like 70s or 80s or something like something like Dazed and Confused-esque.
I feel like the first time I ever heard it was in the 80s.
Yeah. I definitely felt like it
it could be making a comeback
than me when I was a kid was saying.
Yeah.
Well, because I called Logan the tits and people are like reacting to it. Like it was like some like the phrase. I thought the phrase was understood to be like, oh, I liked this thing.
Well, there's
maybe it's not made a comeback then.
Well, why don't we look up that particular phrase
on Urban Dictionary?
Is there any other dictionary that helps you decipher?
Man, there is kind of a rollback on this Logan movie. People are like very much enjoying not liking it.
Another way of saying
what?
Something.
Yeah,
that's just our culture of hate. Like, oh, a bunch of people like something, I'm going to enjoy hating it.
You want to know what I think it is? I think it's that it has gotten such an endorsement from people with kids that I think that there is a youth or non-kids like element
that actually
like,
can make sense. Yeah.
That's like, oh no, well, it didn't do anything for me. I don't
Enjoy
have
your
a
old
daughter.
Yeah,
but you might. And the rest of my sentence was going to be a spoiler, but I won't say it. So you're welcome.
You're welcome for not being spoiled.
I will. Yeah. Please thank me for not spoiling you.
Yes. You owe me.
Exactly. I can spoil X-Men Apocalypse, which I saw on the plane, which was terrible.
Was it? It looked really bad, but I didn't. I had no.
Oh, is it bad? It's
like is it bad? Like the plot doesn't make sense, or is it just like?
It's bad. Like it's kind of the worst of all superhero movies, right? It's almost a parody of superhero movie oversprawl, where they do everything. Let's try to jam a bunch of characters in that are references to comic book characters, but now we're going to just jam new actors in there and act like you care about them. Let's totally gratuitously tack in this like emotional a subplot for an already established character so we can make you care about them again, so they can change directions for the third time in this franchise.
It's got a little bit of the problem of Batman versus Superman, where it's trying to be too many movies.
Well, it's
Batman versus Superman is also nihilistically stupid and is trying to pretend like it's the most.
I actually thought I could have enjoyed one of the movies in Batman versus Superman.
Well, you know, the thing with Batman Superman, this is my problem, is that they made that movie as a way to explain all their upcoming releases. So it's more of a corporate attempt.
You're saying it's a big sizzle reel?
Yeah, basically, like this stuff is all going to happen. So this is just going to give you a taste of what you know is going to happen, which is going to be like a Justice League movie when we have the Wonder Woman. So what they do is they try to shoehorn all these elements so you get excited without understanding that you're not excited about the movie you're currently sitting through.
But aside from Wonder Woman, who is, and now we're just
no, they tease the Flash.
I know, that's aside from Wonder Woman. Aside from Wonder Woman, everything literally comes in an attachment to an email.
Yes.
That's literally it's one of the dumbest 6-minute sequences in movie history where they're just like, okay, no, literally, Wonder Woman's gonna start opening email attachments. Like it's its own parody. Like, man, you're gonna be excited to see these next 4 films because of this email, with all the excitement of an email.
I'll be honest though, that was the only scene I wanted to see again afterwards because I wanted to read all the details they had. I wish they would have sent it to me as an email so that I could peruse them at my leisure.
Do you think they got their logos from the stock art that came in LexCorp's personal email system that generated those thumbnails?
I like that as a backstory.
Also, that movie had horrible writing. Like whoever scripted, it's just like the dialogue is insipid. Like, I mean, it's a superhero movie, but even beyond that, it's like really bad. It's just like there are elements of Batman's behavior that is totally at odds with, what people know of what Batman is, right? Batman and Batman versus Superman is kind of a lunkhead. It's like he's just very vindictive and doesn't think anything through. He goes straight on emotion, and it's just like, no, wait. The Batman we've been presented is he's a very calculating, cold, detached person. Now we have this over-emotional, frat guy who I guess he lives in a burnt-out mansion. I don't know, because his house looks like a...
And he's also supposed to be old, but he's not really all that old. Like, he is kind of
that's like some Ben Affleck self-hatred right there.
They took Frank Miller's approach to Batman, and then they tried to marry it with the stuff they already had for Batman, and it just doesn't work.
I mean, but also the fact of the matter is the movie fails on Superman. They've never been able to really crack Superman. It's fairly obvious that Zack Snyder wants to push this very detached, almost like teenage melodramatic, like, why does the world got to push this on me, man, kind of version of the character, which, while certainly a departure, is not what anybody finds interesting about Superman, right? Like,
well, and that's the problem. Superman can be one of the most compelling characters, and they showed that with their first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, because they kind of gave that twist where he felt like he was so trapped by the need to not constantly be Superman. Like he needed to be Clark Kent at the same time, and he found. But there wasn't that play. It was just like, both people had mother issues of some type or another. Like it was just really bizarre.
We got it at the end. Yeah, we understood. Yeah, they have mom issues. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it was. I mean, number one, it might be the movie that I like the least that I've talked about the most. Like it is a movie that I constantly wind up getting into conversations about, and to the point where I feel like I unironically kind of like it because I've talked about how terrible it is so much. Like now it has just filled a part of my life that I don't think I'm ever going to go back from.
It's weird. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, I was going to repeat myself, so I don't feel too bad. I think there's 2, maybe 3 movies in there that I would like if they were pulled out.
All right, so open up that idea. What are the movies that you would have liked to live on its own?
There's a Batman movie.
Okay,
and I'm not contradicting any of the criticisms you gave of Batman and that performance. Those would all need to be fixed. But a Batman movie about his struggle, and like maybe he's really old, right? And maybe he's they set up a really interesting Batman movie of him, long into his life, still dealing with this, and maybe he's mad at the populace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You could go somewhere with that.
So
I'd be interested in seeing that movie.
The Batman has to reconcile with his own behavior because he's taken to branding child molesters and throwing them in prison. So they like, okay. And at some point he has to realize that behavior is...
You obviously know the movie way better than I do. So
Yeah.
not going
No,
to make
that definitely happens. He burns a child molester with a batarang, and apparently that's a pattern of behavior that he is now doing regularly.
Batman and counseling.
And that's what, that's totally taken from the Frank Miller Dark Knight series, except that Frank Miller's thing was more of a cynical play, and kind of at least the first one, on the cynical play of kind of the 80s Reagan.
Frank Miller is an intensely nihilistic writer, right?
He's
he has a very bleak view of the world.
He's almost, I guess in many cases, he's a right-wing reactionary kind of guy. I mean, it's his books all devolve into like a nihilistic, but also just like over-the-top violence. Like,
it's hard to call him right wing when in his greatest work of Batman, the Dark Knight Returns, it involves Ronald Reagan staying as permanent president. So like drawing like left and right is kind of a hard thing for him, but certainly a very, very dark nihilistic. If the label that I would probably put almost more on that is darkly misogynistic. I think that if there's one thing that you see repeatedly in his work is that the one saving grace is Batman, a dark, tortured, nihilistic person who punches harder than the other people and breaks the rules that the villainous society has set up. And now there's going to be somebody dark enough to break them for the greater good. In a lot of ways, there's some similarities between Frank Miller and Aaron Sorkin. Really just Aaron Sorkin his characters to wear suits and his punching his monologues.
It's very much of the I have to do this because society is just so oblivious, or just intentionally tunnel visioned about certain things, and how you just can't let the Joker get away all the time. You finally have to get rid of him, and they eventually do. No spoilers, but I don't know. It's just the thing is, it doesn't really make for an entertaining movie. Like overall, I was just not entertained, and that's why I still think the Avengers as well as Guardians of the Galaxy are still my two top faves, because they're fun. You go in and you come out smiling, like, hey, that was a good time. It was a good ride. You see the Hulk smash things. You see explosions.
Sure, yeah. To be honest, the further I get away from it, especially because the two movies mirror each other so closely, the more I appreciate Civil War. Civil War is I think if you want to do a larger pathos, like what does it mean to be a superhero, sins of the past kind of story, how far does friendship extend? There's
a lot of good material. To be honest, I think it would be better as a TV series than episodic movie blockbuster every summer.
Well, I mean, the problem with Civil War is that, I remember walking into Civil War. I had a 10 p.m. show. 7 p.m. show was letting out as I was getting in for the 10 p.m. show, right? And I remember feeling like, oh, wow, nobody seems to be smiling walking out of this movie. Like, is that a bad sign? And when you get to the end of it, and without getting too much into spoilers, the main thrust of the villain's arc is essentially an elaborate suicide attempt. You're like, oh, wow, this is just a very dark movie that happens to include a lot of these, funny knee slapping kind of scenes with, like wackety spackety Spider-Man and stuff like that. Otherwise it's about death and forgiving somebody that has done horrors in their life, and how much you should blame them for it. How much is nature versus nurture? There's a lot of kind of really heavy themes at play. Whereas in Batman versus Superman, there are also a lot of heavy themes at play, except it comes off like your friend who trains, MMA trying to read you his poetry.
Slam poetry.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, man.
Right,
you ever read Howard Zinn?
It's a people's history. Thanks everybody for watching. We will be back tomorrow. Programming note for you live viewers, pass this along to everybody else. We'll be a half hour early tomorrow, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, because of some database maintenance. We want to make sure we get the show published before that happens. So we will see you a half hour early tomorrow. Bye. Whee!